I'm Sabir Ahmed. I'm a PhD student at University of Virginia, USA. But while continuing this research, I was in Bangladesh, and at the time I was a researcher at North South University. So the title of this research is a minimalistic approach to predict and understand the relation of app users with students' academic performances. The authors are me, Rahajan Grani, Mohammad Abdul Hadi, Ikram Hussain, and Professor Nova. I think all of you know that the smartphone uses increased significantly among the young generation. It's not just before, during, and after the COVID, but it was before the COVID as well. That is, there was a significant higher uses among the young generation. But the problem is there is a found a negative relation of smartphone uses with students' academic performances. So that actually motivated us to conduct research in this domain. And the main research gap in the previous studies is that the they actually used the self-reported data, particularly in the case of exploration of categories like the productivity, video, books categories. Though there are some studies, I will say that there are some promising studies who, in the case of Facebook app use data and some other social media category. But as far as we have seen that there is no study who is used to the objective data in the case of video category, productivity category, books category, games category, and explore the relation of app users with students' academic performances. And also there are some promising systems which predicted the students' academic performances using some objective data, but the main problem in those studies and those systems are the requirement of the prolonged data and prolonged data collection period actually. For example, those systems may require several weeks data, and in case of some studies I found that there's requirement of some months data as well. So that's problematic because it may not help in early intervention. So we developed a system which can retrieve the past 7 days app usage data within a second. And after testing multiple times, we found that our app can retrieve the past 7 days app usage data very accurately, and the required time is around 307 milliseconds. And to estimate this time, we tested the app 10,000 times on the smartphones. To do this study, we collected data from 124 university students of Bangladesh. We did the research in Bangladesh, particularly with the motivation that in the pervasive computing research, there are very less research in the low and middle income countries. So our findings may also help to understand the students more who are from the low and middle income countries. So we collected the app usage data and also actual CGPA data from the faculties, and in the case of app usage data, it was from the students. Here's the basic pipeline of the system, and here we see that we collected the app usage data and also academic performances. Later we categorized those apps into different categories. It was 27, and during the categorization we followed the previous studies, and also we contacted to students from the engineering faculty who had experience in app development. And also we extracted different behavioral markers like the frequency of launch, use duration per launch. But we also consider the sequence of apps in as a session, and we categorized those sessions into micro session, review session, and engage session. We later we divided the data into 70% and 30%. 70% was used for training purpose, and 30% data were used for testing purpose. We used the different machine learning algorithms because there is no algorithm which can ensure the optimal performance for every research problem. We tuned the hyperparameters using research approach. After finding the best individual machine learning algorithm, we selected the top 3 for developing a voting regressor, which is also work based on the concept of wisdom of the crowd. So here are the findings. These findings are based on the total smartphone usage data, and we find that in the case of session, there exists a significant negative relation between the students' academic performances and a number of app usage sessions, number of micro session, review session. Also, in the case of engage session, though in this case the p-value is close to significance level, but it's not statistically significant. We explored those relations more by dividing the days into 4 time periods, that is night, morning, afternoon, and evening. We found that in the case of afternoon and evening, there is just a negative relation. We divided the categories into 27, as I mentioned earlier. But here we are presenting only the significant findings, and also we are presenting the findings in the case of social media category. Though there is no statistically significant relation, but we consider that this category because this is one of the most popular app category. So we find that in the case of books productivity, there exists a positive relation, but in the case of video category, there exists a negative relation. And in the case of social media category, there is no relation. Though there is a relation statistically significant in the case of browser, entertainment, and health and fitness categories. But in this case, we see that there is actually one data for which there exists a statistically significant relation. That's why we did not consider this category for further exploration. But in the case of books, productivity, and video categories, there are multiple data for which we find a statistically significant relation, and that's why we considered those categories for further exploration. So here we divided the data into 4 time periods, and we see the statistical significant relation in different time periods. For example, in the case of books category, we see a significant positive relation in the case of evening time periods of frequency of loss. Later, we define actually, if there exists a relation, this does not mean that the high users and low users will have different academic performances. So that's motivated us to explore this more. We find that in the case of total number of session, review session, micro session, review session, and engage session, the high users have the lower CGPA and low users have the higher CGPA, and the difference is statistically significant. We also explored the same difference, same competition in the case of app categories as well: books, productivity, video, and social. We find almost consistent findings. Though in the case of video category, there is no statistically significant difference, but still it's close to significance level of 0.05. Later, we explored that who are the smartphone users who have similar types of behavioral patterns. So for that, we did cluster analysis. We used the DVSCN clustering algorithm to find the students who have similar smartphone usage behavior. So we considered the largest cluster, and later we explored the difference between these students. That is the main question was if actually main exploration purpose was that if there are some students who have similar smartphone uses behavior, but there is a variation in the case of app categories behavior, like the productivity video, uh, do their CGPA also vary? So we found some interesting findings. We see that though these students have similar smartphone uses behavior, but when their productivity uses differ, their academic performance also differ. So for example, here we see that high users of productivity category have higher CGPA, but low users of productivity category have lower CGPA, but they have similar smartphone usage behavior when we consider the smartphone usage behavior regardless of the category. Here we present the high and low CGPA holders is a data difference. We find that the books category, productivity category, high CGPA holders have higher uses, and low CGPA holders have lower uses. And here we present the high and low CGPA holders use data difference, and that is we are interested in finding whether there exists any statistically significant different diurnal usage pattern. So we see that in the case of productivity duration, productivity loss, there is a statistically significantly different diurnal usage pattern between the high user CGP holders and low CGP holders. In the case of video category as well, we see that there exists a statistically significantly different diurnal usage pattern in the case of evening time period. So we predicted our models predicted the CGPA, and we see that in the case of KNN algorithm, the mean absolute error is 0.36, which means that the predicted CGPA differed 0.36 from the actual CGPA. It can be mentioned that the student CGPA varied from 0 to 4. And also we find that the predicted CGPA and the actual CGPA were statistically significantly positively related. So the key takeaways of our research is that all app categories and all app usage data do not impact equally. The impact actually varies by the data and also app categories. So while designing a system, this should be considered. For example, in the case of as we found that there is a significant negative impact of app uses of app usage session on the students' academic performances. So if there is a student who have a higher episode session, then some steps to reduce the episode session can be taken. And also we found that, that using the instantly accessed 7 days episode data, the model can predict the academic performances and the mean absolute error is only 0.36. And so this actually shows that it's possible to predict the student's academic performance within a short time. So early intervention can be taken. So thank you. If you have any question, you can feel free to ask.